Freeze.
Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, I think we have audio now. Perfect, we do. All right. Okay, sorry about that. The audio had a little issue, so we had to switch to our other software we usually use. So hopefully we have all that fixed now. So I live in Southwest Virginia, Vegas. Two piglets were sold today, but now they have put the remaining two piglets back in with their mom and dad, which makes Princess and Pickles very happy. I'm going to try to insert a feed of the Weather Channel because I want to know about the hurricane as much as everyone else. So that's what I'm going to be working on, trying to get a stream of the Weather Channel in for everyone. Yes, the two Picklets did, and the owner of them is also a photographer. So she's going to be using them for a lot of pictures, but mainly for them to live on the farm with their other pigs that they have there. You are all welcome. I know it's a super hard time right now because of course Raz had to shut his site down due to the hurricane that is hitting him in the next few days, and I just wanted to be able to provide a place where people could still watch a stream and still be able to chat with everyone, and hopefully Raz will be able to talk to us before the hurricane hits. But I know he's super busy with preparing for the hurricane and it's been really sad because nobody down there in Florida deserves this, but unfortunately the storm is not showing any sign. The storm is slowly, like, the pressure is rising back up, so that shows that it will begin to weaken. Usually it will do that, but if it stays out in the sea, it may not weaken. So hopefully this storm will just pass by fast and it won't get over. And then hopefully it won't be true what the National Weather Service says. Hopefully that Florida will be able to um, go back to their homes and stuff like a few days after the storm, rather than to be uninhabitable for months. I can imagine that being like that. So it's just going to be a hard next few days. I just hope to make everybody a little bit more happy, but it's just really hard right now with everybody going through the storm. And I know some chatters live around the path that the storm is going through, so they say special prayers for them. But we're mainly praying for Raz, who is in the worst part of the storm, that's supposed to be in the worst part of the storm. But hopefully he will get through there okay, and hopefully the storm will pass by fast and won't do any significant damage. So again, we wish him the best, and yeah, we just are going to try to get through this and hope nothing happens to him, which we just got to pray. That's all we can do, is just pray for him. But we hope that the storm does pass by fast. I know it hits around Florida beginning Saturday morning, and then I noticed that like Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and so forth, it pushes out and gets out of there. So this weekend's going to be really hard on Florida. I know, especially for Miami and the Florida Keys. I know they had mandatory evacuations last night, and I was watching the Weather Channel late last night and saw some other places in Florida. I can't remember the name right now, but they had to evacuate Zone A was mandatory, and it was beginning at like 7 o'clock today. Then they had there was another county that you had like something county down there. I think it was like Sarasota County was having to evacuate Zone A, and they are planning to evacuate Zone B's as well. And of course, we get more evacuation notices as long as we go through the Weather Channel live stream. But my dad runs like the Dish Network and stuff, so if I can get his code from Dish Network, I can insert the Weather Channel stream in HD. But I can also feed it in right now off a YouTube stream. Won't be as good as quality, but you'll be able to tell what everything's going on. And yeah, so we'll try to do that and get that pulled up here very shortly. Yes, the pressure is awful. Yesterday it was at 914, and that is really bad. That poses for more strengthening of the storm. And these weathermen are forecasting that the storm could strengthen within 48 hours. But now the pressure is rising back up, so that is a little bit of a good sign, which means the storm could start losing strength, and that it's more vulnerable to things that cause it to lose strength. But right now, Hurricane Irma is still a Category 5 storm, but when it hits Florida, it's supposed to be a Category 4, which is not much better, but the winds are at least a little bit lower than what it hit when it was at Cuba and Puerto Rico and different things like that. Oh, yeah, sure right. Today Vegas was measured at approximately 600 miles, which is as wide as Florida, or even a little bit wider, give or take around that number. But Hurricane Irma is currently as wide as Florida. Just imagine that. So hopefully these models are not correct, and hopefully Irma can push out back to sea rather than devastate and slam into Florida and many other states along the U.S. East Coast. And it's very scary for everyone. Like they're running out of gas down there, and of course you got these people that are trying to price gouge on many things, and you have everybody that's out of water and just like the basic necessities like bread and different things like that. Every place is running out of those things because of course everybody's trying to stock up on all these things. So it's really hard on people to find stuff that they need, and it's just being a very hard time for everyone. And then including the people that are trying to evacuate, the road is backed up for miles and miles and miles and miles, and it's going to take them hours and hours to get through that traffic because there's only one way out of Florida. You can't go across the state. You can't go like down the state. You can't go to the other side of the state. You have to go up. That's the only way out of Florida, unfortunately, for those fine people that live down there. Yes, I agree with that. Like, what will happen to the storm when it hits 80-degree water in Florida? Will it strengthen or will it weaken? Because hurricanes are, whenever they hit warmer water, they are known to gain strength. So that would not be a good thing at all. This has been one of the worst storms that we have seen in many, many years. It's actually supposed to hit us in Virginia as well. If it keeps going this path, it's supposed to go off. It's supposed to go on land and hit us as a Category 1, but Raz in Florida and everybody else in Florida are supposed to get a major, major hurricane. So Category 1 means nothing to, us. That's just a lot of rain. But Florida is going to get hit hard. This is not a storm to joke about. It's already taken 3 lives as of this morning, and it's all to blame on Irma. And there's an island out in the Caribbean that has been completely wiped off, like of all houses, and everything is gone. Like, Irma has devastated this island in the Caribbean. Hi, Corky Bird. Ugh. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Hi, Corky Bird. How are you this evening?
Water's going up. I just watched water go up. It literally went up and then sat there like that.
As you see here, this is St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, and look at the extreme winds that are whipping around there. It'd be one of those situations impossible to stand upright. Trees are swaying around, and there's certainly a lot of those getting knocked over as well. One of the areas certainly that felt quite a bit of impacts from Hurricane Irma. Of course, it continues to move its way on off towards the west-northwest at this point. And here in the U.S., we got some drone video showing some of that slower traffic, almost bumper to bumper here. Traffic on 75 as people try to funnel their way on into the Atlanta area, escaping Irma there in Florida. So impacts being felt pretty widespread across parts of the South and the East. All right, let's get to this Hurricane Irma and the very latest on what we've got with it. We've got a hurricane expert, Brian Norcross. And Brian, it's amazing how powerful this thing has remained for so long.
We've never seen a storm like this. Never seen a storm stay so strong for so long anywhere on the earth. On all the typhoons and hurricanes that have been observed, this is the longest duration for a super intense storm. and it is still super intense, even though it's a little bit less than its peak. Take a look at it on the satellite. This reminds me of Typhoon Haiyan when it was coming into the Philippines a few years ago. Incredible. And here it is coming into the Turks and Caicos Islands. So these are the Turks and Caicos here. This is the southeastern Bahamas up here. This is called Cockburn Town. It was a Scottish name, pronounced Cockburn, and that's the capital of the Turks and Caicos. And boy, they are getting what we think is the worst part of this hurricane, with 175 type mile-an-hour winds, and then moving here into the Caicos, the three Caicos Islands, the North, Middle, and the Eastern Caicos. Providenciales, where all the resorts are, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place, is just going to get a tremendous hit here in the next few hours. All right, let me see if I can make my... Well, my system just decided not to go forward on me here. So let me just talk for a second here while we try and get it running. So the issue here, after we get past this storm going through the Turks and Caicos and then through the Bahamas, and the southeastern Bahamas into the central Bahamas are the most intensely threatened by this system. Nassau, there you go. That's... all right, well, all right, hang on a second. There's Hurricane Jose, by the way, which is unfortunately is going to threaten the same islands that were originally hit in the northern Leeward Islands as a very, very strong hurricane. All right, so there is, there you see the cone for Irma. Now, the main message of this is that, okay, here we are. We're back on me here. We don't know what exactly all happened there. But the main message is that all of Florida is threatened. And I wanted to show you the European model just to give you an idea of what we think is going to happen. The first thing is that it's coming near Cuba. This should prove to provide some weakening of the storm. So the thinking is that we're not going to get the 175-mile-an-hour hurricane to come up toward Florida, but it still has very warm water to traverse between where it interacts with Cuba and ends up somewhere up here in Florida. And so it has an opportunity to maintain its strength, and that's why we are very fearful of an extraordinarily strong storm coming toward Florida. The European model this afternoon brings us the storm right into the middle of the Keys, just like Hurricane Donna in 1960, a huge storm. That doesn't mean that's where it's going. It means that all of this, everybody in Florida, needs to be on high alert. All right, I'll expect you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Well, coming up, we're going to continue to break down the future track of Irma as this dangerous hurricane approaches Florida as well as the southeast U.S.
In harm's way.
Making its way toward the northwest. Stay with us, much more straight ahead.
Coming up next, local weather now.
The next day. Neulasta is for certain cancer patients receiving strong chemotherapy. Do not take Neulasta if you're allergic to Neulasta or Neupogen, filgrastim.
down. It's being in motion. In body, in
You got the brains, I got the everything else.
Into Miami, pouring into Biscayne Bay, pouring in.
Some of the incredible images as Irma made its way across the northern Leeward Islands. Now we've got hurricane watches up for parts of southern Florida, down through the Keys as well. These watches are up, meaning hurricane conditions are possible in the area, and they generally go up about 48 hours before the onset of tropical storm force winds are expected there. The reason why is because once the tropical storm force winds move in, preparation time should be done. It's going to be impossible to get out there and prepare with tropical storm force winds around. There's the projected path here as we move our way through time, moving its way now to basically the Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, then eventually working its way towards South Florida late Saturday into our Sunday, and you can still see moving its way up into the southeast, still with a formidable system here that could bring with it some of those gusty, strong winds and also some heavy rain. Well, we'd certainly like to welcome our viewers for watching us on Local Now. You and your loved ones, they can see breaking news on Irma coverage on the Local Now app. All you have to do is change your feed settings to Florida, Georgia, or South Carolina to get the latest and the Weather Channel's expert coverage. All right, let's get to the very latest on Irma. Hurricane watches, again, they're up in South Florida from Jupiter Inlet to Bonita Beach, including the Florida Keys. A state of emergency that has been declared in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Miami evacuation orders, well, they now include 650,000 residents. By Friday, all 7,000 members of the Florida National Guard will be activated. And to underscore Irma's danger, well, the National Weather Service in Miami has stated, quote, locations might be uninhabitable for weeks or months. So far, Irma is blamed for 6 deaths in the Caribbean. All right, let's get you to the very latest on Irma. We bring our hurricane expert, Brian Norcross. And Brian, we watch this thing here continuing to work its way across the Atlantic. Powerful, powerful system, and seeing some changes in the models here. But still, we want to reiterate, everyone, East, West Coast, need to be prepared for this thing.
You know, we look at these models, Alex, and we concentrate on those models, and so we can see them. Oh, look, they moved a little bit that way. They moved 50 miles this way. They moved 10 miles that way. And that becomes very concerning. That should not be what concerns us. What should concern us is that the cone is aimed at Florida and the storm is going through the island. So that's really the issue. In actual fact, the forecast hasn't changed. The forecast is for a big hurricane to come to Florida. Now, this is not Florida. This is, I wanted to go back because we had the computer problems there a moment ago. This is the Turks and Caicos Islands, and obviously the hurricane is heading right through them. We are just very fearful for what's going to happen down there. And here's why. The storm surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center is for the ocean to rise up 15 to 20 feet. Now, not in every part of every island, but there are a lot of harbors down there. And if the wind is pushing the water into the harbor, that's what can happen. Other coastlines are not as subject to it, but some areas have this incredible storm surge threat. And you see the 5 to 10 foot threat in the northwestern Bahamas and all of South Florida. We'll look at that in more detail a little bit coming up. So here we have the 175-mile-an-hour hurricane with this incredible low pressure. Neither of those numbers sound like bizarre now. They would have any normal time, but because they were even more extreme here yesterday. And now, looking at this model once again, I want to go back to what we were talking about and bringing it up here to what the model says is going to happen at 6 a.m. Sunday, bearing in mind, even though this looks like it's coming right across Marathon and just mauling the Keys, especially the upper Keys to the just to the east of Marathon, but we don't know that it's going to be there or there or there or even over here, because that's all within the margin of error, even here and maybe a little bit farther to these. All within the margin of error. So, but what's important is look at the size of the circulation. The circulation here is the size of the state. So if it were to go like the European is saying today, this circulation covers the state, and the strong winds are coming ashore and pushing water ashore on the east coast, to the right of the system, and behind the system on the left, the west coast. So we have concern for the entire state. So I don't want anybody in the state of Florida to think they're not going to be affected by this storm. This forecast shows you that we can't cut that slice the salami that finely. We just don't know where it's going to go. We just think it is an extreme threat to the state of Florida. Okay, here's the, I wanted to look at the cone once again because I wanted to go over what the thinking was on the intensity of the storm. The idea is as it comes near Cuba, perhaps a little bit of weakening, and then the indications are in the computer models that two things are going to happen. Once it comes ashore in Florida, of course, we have the friction with the land and everything. That will slow it down a little bit. And also we have some upper level winds here that are going to start to impact it. So they're still showing a Category 4 hurricane for South Florida, but look at this. All the way up in North Florida, it's going to kind of pick it up and lift it quickly up to the northern part of the state. And the thinking is a solid Category 1 hurricane, even in South Georgia. So we're talking the entire state of Florida to receive hurricane force winds, or at least wind gusts. So this is like something we really have never seen. Alex, back to you.
Indeed. Important to note, again, how much impacts will be felt farther inland as well. We do want to head to Central Florida now. Reporter John Zarella joins us live from Cocoa Beach. John, what's the latest?
Hey, Alex. Well, a lot of traffic here on A1A, the main artery in Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, down the road a bit here. Mandatory evacuations for the barrier islands go into effect 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So we won't be seeing this traffic here after tomorrow afternoon. That's for sure. You know, a lot of people remember Hurricane Matthew here. It was supposed to make a direct hit, but at the last minute veered off the coast, stayed offshore. The maximum wind gust here was reported at Cape Canaveral at 107. But I have to tell you, one of the places that was impacted was the supermarket, the Winn-Dixie. That Winn-Dixie had its roof blown off during Matthew. They spent about 8 months rebuilding, and they just reopened 2 months ago, and now here we go again. Now, I've noticed gas stations, some of them starting to run out of fuel. There isn't any plywood around on the islands anymore, so people are making their preparations. Today's the day to do it. Tomorrow's the day to do it. And then by Saturday, everything needs to be wrapped up. People who are hunkering down and staying in their homes, and a lot of people have told me that they are, all their preparations need to be done. The question is going to be how many people heed the warnings and actually evacuate and get out of these barrier islands. Alex?
John, I'm sure we'll be checking back with you there in Cocoa Beach. Meanwhile, we do want to focus in on some of the other areas that'll be feeling the impacts from Hurricane Irma. It's not just a South Florida thing, and we're going to be moving its way inland to Central Florida and even beyond. We got a spot like Orlando. Heads up here for you. Sunday morning through Monday morning, we'll be looking at least 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts there. Looks like the strongest of the winds coming in for your latter part of Sunday. That's where the hurricane force wind gusts will be possible, along with the rainfall issues there. 5 to 8 inches that'll be possible. So Orlando there for you are really looking for a potential power outage issue. So be prepared for that there across at least central portions of Florida. Or Orlando, again, one of those spots. But again, we continue to move our way across, not just there in central Florida, but looking a little bit farther to the east with the rainfall there, 8-9 inches. Titusville towards the Melbourne area, lighter amounts as you slide towards the north and the west. Again, always going to be dependent on where the exact track of Irma heads, but just know heavy rainfall will also be an impact there for you as well. How about in Marathon, Florida? You've got your basically Saturday morning through Sunday afternoon into the evening. That's where we'll be looking for those tropical storm force wind gusts, hurricane force wind gusts. Looks like that time period Saturday late through Sunday morning, up to a foot of rainfall possible, and we could be looking at storm surge getting up to 10 feet. So some big impacts there possible around Marathon. Fort Myers also looking for winds, tropical storm force Saturday afternoon through Monday morning, and then the hurricane force winds Sunday morning looks to be the peak of that, but also heavy rain, 8 inches up to a foot possible there. Well, coming up, we do continue to break down the future track of Hurricane Irma as this dangerous hurricane approaches Florida and the southeast U.S. continuing to track Hurricane Irma. There you have hurricane watches there have been posted up now today across southern Florida down towards the Keys, also included in that West Palm Beach. You got Miami over towards Naples as well. So both the east and west coast there in southern Florida underneath those hurricane watches now. There is the projected path with Irma right now making its way through the Turks Caicos, southern Bahamas. You'll be impacted. Then eventually as we head into the weekend, we're looking at Florida, and you can see impacts will be felt well inland. By the time we get to Monday late in the day, we're still talking about a Category 1 hurricane in southern Georgia, or maybe they're off the South Carolina coast, just depending on where this thing heads. But you get the point. Impacts will be felt pretty widespread. Most of the peninsula of Florida getting into the southeast. Let's take a look at the tropical storm force winds and the timing of when this is expected to occur. And notice there, South Florida, we're looking at essentially sometime after 8 o'clock Friday in towards your Saturday morning. That's going to be the time when those tropical storm force winds begin to set on in. And once that happens, it's going to be too late to do any sort of preparing. So you still have the rest of today, most of your Friday to get that preparation done across South Florida. And then you can see down the line working through the weekend. All right, well, we're going to get to some of your questions this evening. They have been coming in on Twitter as well as Facebook, so we'll go to them and try to answer as many as we can here as we head on through this evening. We got one from Jack Pelt. Says, is there a possibility that the other tropical systems around Irma could be affected by or maybe even affect Irma?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Jose, which is now actually a Category 3 hurricane behind Irma and is going to threaten the northern Leeward Islands, will be affected by Irma downstream. Unfortunately, not enough to really kind of kill it off, which we originally thought might be a possibility. But yes, it will affect Irma, but it will be affected by Irma. There you see, there's Jose, there's Irma there, and some of this outflow is heading down toward Jose here, but unfortunately not enough to keep it from keep Jose from bothering the islands.
Yeah, in fact, I believe some of those northern Leeward Islands are in the hurricane watches again, right, thanks to Jose getting closer and closer. All right, let's keep it moving here. Tracking more questions. This one coming in from James says, why is the rain so little compared to Harvey's incredible 50 inches?
Because this storm is expected to continue moving. Harvey went up and made a loop and came back down. This one is expected to keep on going. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to get heavy rain. It's hard to tell exactly because it depends on where the track is. But this is such a big storm that it's going to rain for a long time. Now, Hurricane Andrew was moving so fast and it was a small storm, so we only got about 5 inches or so. But with this storm, we might get a foot. And in some places, and maybe even a little more. So we need to be aware of that, but not like Harvey.
Yeah, one of the key things, as you mentioned, that speed of the storm, not going to hang around for forever. But here are some of the rainfall amounts. As you mentioned, still nothing to sneeze at when we're talking double-digit totals here for us across South Florida.
Yeah, but I actually wouldn't pay attention to any of this because this depends on a particular track. So we may get a foot here. The foot may be over here. You know, we really, it depends on where the